Welcome, one and all, to the Off the Mic Wrestling Show here on YouTube. Thank you all for tuning in. We do one of these on Thursdays, usually to talk about the leftover stuff or stuff I've seen on the internet, takes that I've seen, stuff that bothers me, stuff that maybe has been mentioned to me, asked by friends, whatever. But we had a big story come out, and it is kind of shook up the wrestling world a little bit. So AEW next year, I think it's July 12th, is going to run All In from Arlington, Texas, Globe Life Field, home of the world champion, MLB world champion Texas Rangers. So, and it's shockingly, this is the first pay per view that AEW has run in the state of Texas, even though Texas is, they've probably run more events, like live events, dynamites, rampages, whatever, from the state of Texas. So, but this is a big deal. This is going to be their largest, if projected and goes the way it should go. It's probably going to sell more tickets for this event than any other event has in North America. It'll go past. I mean, I'm not going to say it's the first stadium show that they've done because they technically did Arthur Ashe Stadium, but that's a tennis venue. This is a baseball stadium, which probably seats twice as many people. So this is a big deal, and this has been in the works for a while. A lot of people were on this a while back. A lot of people, Fightful most notably, that this was in the works, that something big was going to happen. There's also rumors of an Australia show happening in a stadium somewhere in 2025. So, but yeah, I mean, this makes a lot of sense, especially with All In. It's not sustainable, I think, with where AEW is to do it 3 years in a row. There might be an event happening in August or right around where they want to do it, or in this July date that they wanted to change it. But I do think it's smart to come to North America and do a big time show at a baseball stadium. I do think it'll draw pretty well. Just as, like, the novelty of being the first one and being in a baseball stadium. I think that's great. There's a lot of talent that can market this. You've obviously got Athena was at the event promoting this. I hope Athena's featured prominently next year on AEW television. She's fantastic. She's from Dallas, so it makes a lot of sense. Thunder Rosa is from, I think, Laredo or not Laredo, or somewhere in Texas. So so she obviously has a background in Mission Pro Wrestling, which is around in the area like San Antonio, that area. So it's really cool to see this event getting a lot of publicity, and it's a big moment for AEW. Like I said, the first really main level stadium show that they have done in North America outside of Grand Slam, because they haven't really done anything outside of Grand Slam in a stadium. They've done it mostly in basketball venues. What some people are going to point to is that this is somewhat of a qualified risk because of attendance are not doing very well. Obviously, All In, I think they're going to get to about 50,000, but that's about 30,000 people less than what they had last year. Some of that has to do with a more drawn down stage because Taylor Swift is having concerts out there. Although I heard recently that Taylor Swift may not be doing, because Taylor Swift does like these tours, so one of the concerts may not be happening at Wembley. There might be more. Don't exactly know the details behind that, but nonetheless, this is still a very big deal. But the one thing I want to talk about here, I talk about tribalism a lot on this show, and what drives me insane is everybody's trying to get their licks in and trying to get the last word in. Like AEW tribalists are trying to say, "Ha ha, we're not gonna die. We're doing a stadium show next year, so I'm gonna take out all my bookmarks and my receipts and dunk on people because they were wrong." And then you got the WWE people who are kind of like disingenuous and basically saying, "Yeah, they're drawing 30,000 people less than what they have, and what's the point of this? Like this is this and this. What the heck are we doing? Like why Tony Khan's stupid? Like listen, I've made no qualms about I've really just haven't cared really that I upset some people with some of the stuff I say about AEW, but a lot of that is related to the product, okay? And I don't think that a lot of what this product is doing, like a lot of the show last night, I thought was good, but there was not a lot of heat to it. There was not a lot of intrigue. And what I think AEW tribalists more than anything need to worry about is putting on good shows that are going to interest the larger scale audience. Because until this company realizes that you're not going to get anywhere if you're just going to book for the sickos. And I think Tony Khan, either he's just realized this or not, they're going to get a TV deal. That's going to happen. That's not going to change. At this point, like, yeah, the fact that we're in the middle of August here and we still don't have one, that's a little bit of a problem. But um, I see AEW people saying, we're going to outlast WCW. So what? I mean, and for you WWE people, why do you care? Why do you care if you don't like AEW? That, like, I've been an AEW day oneer. I've wanted to see this company work for the longest time. It's the booking that has happened recently that has really pissed me off, and it's kind of been borderline insulting. But that doesn't mean I don't want this company to work. So them getting a stadium show, I actually think is really good for the larger scale wrestling community and for wrestlers trying to get up into the mainstream. Like, a lot of people have had the stage in AEW that they wouldn't have had if they went straight to WWE. Like a Jade Cargill, like, who's to say that she gets the opportunity that she gets if she doesn't get that opportunity in AEW? How it went there is a completely different story. And how it's kind of going right now in WWE. I'd like to see her doing a little bit more, but I understand what it is. But Jade Cargill, I mean, Ricky Starks is going to end up there. Do you think Cody Rhodes would have even been thought of to potentially go back to WWE if he hadn't started AEW? So there's that too. CM Punk, there's no way he gets back into wrestling without AEW. So again, I want this company to work, but the way from the way they've paid their talent to the way they've booked to the way attendance has been, and attendance is a direct reflection of the interest in the larger scale audience, and they are not doing that. You're getting your diehard fans and some potential and your internet geeks who your tribal army that's coming out in full force attacking people like me for just being honest. But like, those people aren't showing up. So you've got to start appealing to more people. I do think that this is a great idea, and especially considering it's going to be the first, pay-per-view in Texas, is great. It's going to be right at a week after the 4th of July. So that's smart. It's going to be separated further away from All Out. So you won't have to do back-to-back pay-per-views in the span of like a week or two or 3 weeks. So that's great. And the people that they sent there were the right people. I mean, you had Swerve Strickland's there, and Athena was there, Mercedes Moné. Like I said, and even though like I don't like the way things have gone for Mercedes Moné, she's not in wrestling right now if she doesn't have a platform in AEW. How she's been booked and how this character and how this feud with Britt Baker's gone is a complete and utter disaster. But like I said, the stage that AEW has is good for wrestling, and the people who are just trying to wish that this company goes down or whatever, that's just unnecessary. That's just unnecessary. You don't need to do that. So, but yeah, like I said, I'm very excited to see what comes of this show and what it's going to look like. Being in a baseball stadium, I've only seen a handful of shows go out of baseball stadiums on the WWE level. They did one Tropicana Field this year. They've done a lot of Royal Rumbles in baseball stadiums, but yeah, this should be really cool. The other thing, and I did see this brought up, the other thing that's really interesting here is why this is going down. Because again, I think AEW kind of looked at the. Also, Tony Khan said it's going back to London in 2026, which I was like, why? Why keep doing it in the same venue? The novelty of it. And I think what makes WrestleMania really interesting is they rotate venues. They don't do the same venue every single year. So we'll see how this looks. But he has said, hey, 2026, they're going to go back to Wembley for All In. But what this does in terms of the wrestling world, keep your eyes. And I initially thought that WrestleMania, especially after the meeting a few weeks ago, was on the table for 2026 in terms of a possible WrestleMania show, which would be massive to have a two-day WrestleMania event in London, because John Cena has really lobbied for it. But I would keep my eyes on the SummerSlam going to Wembley Stadium in 2025. I think that with Minnesota's hosting it in 2026 because they got screwed over in Mania, so they announced the first ever 2 night SummerSlam in Minneapolis in 2026. So there's probably going to be a 2 night SummerSlam, the first ever one next year. I would keep my eyes because Wembley is now available. That maybe that might be a reason why AEW decided to move. I think the bigger thing here is doing that stadium 3 years in a row when you're probably going to lose close to 30,000 fans from what you had previously last year to now. You're going to probably cap somewhere around 50,000 people, which isn't bad, but given how much shit people were talking about, hey, we had the largest gate and the largest wrestling audience ever in 81,000 people, and then you come back and do the show, you announce it the night of last year's All In. You have a whole year selling tickets, and you lose 30,000. I don't know what percentage that is, but you lose that portion of your audience. So that's a problem. But again, I would keep my eyes peeled on potentially, especially given the amount of international shows that WWE has done. I could honestly see a scenario that for the first time since 1992, WWE goes back to Wembley Stadium for SummerSlam. If you remember that famed finish with the British Bulldog winning the Intercontinental Championship in one of the great moments ever. So that should be really cool. Yeah, we'll kind of see where things go as we move along here later on in the year. The ratings, I always like to use the show to talk about the Dynamite ratings because those are always a big topic of discussion. Dynamite cleared 700,000. Now you might be saying to yourself, Mike, that's not that good. Given where they were at 620, I think last week, you get the upgrade, get over 700,000. You improve in a lot of the key demos. I do think that that's significant, but again, going back to what I said, I want this company to work, and unless they start to admit to themselves, okay, we've got to start getting heat to these feuds. We've got to start appealing to more to the mainstream. If we're talking about I'm not saying that they're ever going to be really a direct competitor to WWE, but they've got to stop. And Tony Khan said this publicly wherever he's been. I book for the sickos. You've got to stop. You've got to have some sort of crossover and try to be like, okay, I'm booking for the sickos, but also, hey, here's some neat stuff that's going to appeal to the vaster, bigger audience. Because the novelty that was AEW in 2019 and then also in 2021, that's gone. That's gone. And some of the booking has just been confusing to me. I like what they did last night with some of the storylines advancing through video package, but again, you're kind of just doing the bare minimum to get to a stadium show. And the more you keep meandering through television, the more you're going to start losing viewership. And really, the point where they really started to lose a lot of viewership was where the Young Bucks footage aired. And that right around Dynasty, and that's when this company sunk to a new low. They started taking shots at WWE around WrestleMania. It just wasn't appealing to people. It kind of pissed me off. It turned my sister off, who was kind of like a casual viewer, and she was just not into this petulant child version of AEW. So, it's gonna be interesting in the back portion of this year as we go into All In, which is a week from Sunday, and then you do All Out, and then you have. I think Wrestle Dream's going to be coming up. You've got World's End. You've got Full Gear. So you've got a few pay-per-views down the stretch of the year. You're going to have Grand Slam, and I hope Grand Slam starts selling some more tickets because that hasn't been doing well at all. The other thing is you got to stop running these events in the same venues. I understand Grand Slam is you're kind of stuck with the name and having to run that in the tennis venue, but I think it was smart to get All In out of there. And I do think it's kind of weird that Tony Khan is planning on going to Wembley in 2026. But it's just again, focus on the content of your show and try to appeal to people and get these storylines, the interest level. Book your show around and have some of your characters evolve. MJF is still freaking great, but it's starting to feel repetitive. The one guy who is honest to God stood the hell out for a large chunk of this year, even though he was absent for a while, is Hangman Adam Page. Put that guy in a lot more important shit in the back half of this year. And I think he's going to do something with Swerve Strickland at post all in. Bryan Danielson's going to be your world champion. I don't know for how long, because he's going to sort of dial it back and kind of become more of a full-time dad and a part-time wrestler. But yeah, start putting some of your bigger guns into bigger positions. Hangman's been fantastic. Book Swerve like he is worth a shit. Make Mercedes interesting. Put Athena on the main roster and get her away from Ring of Honor. Because that woman, for anybody who has even paid attention to the world of pro wrestling, this is not your Ember Moon. She has done a phenomenal job in Ring of Honor. And nobody can watch it unless you want to watch the Ring of Honor pay-per-views, which are a dime a dozen. Like there's like 3 or 4 of them a year. And unless you really want to pay up like $10 a month to go watch Ring of Honor on Honor Club, you're not going to just watch it for one woman. But honestly, she would be worth it. And I've only seen highlights because, again, like I said, there's not a whole hell of a lot else going on there. I like Mark Briscoe, and he's their champion, but ROH is kind of booked almost to affect like an NXT, but it's almost lower than an NXT. It's like, there's not a whole hell of a lot that goes on there. It's just, there's not a lot interesting, but then they do their pay-per-views and they do really good stuff. So, yeah, that's, it's definitely interesting. But anyway, back to the ratings here. So 700,000 for AEW. I think it was like 702. That's, to me, given where they were and where I honestly didn't expect them to get to 700,000. So this is kind of a little bit of a triumph, but I wouldn't go celebrating too much because, listen, if you're in the business of like trying to dunk on people because something like looked positive, listen, like you've got to like, have a better, you got to have like a better 703, by the way. So I was a little bit short, but you've got to be looking more. Like, the reason why these numbers keep getting brought up is AEW was doing it a lot in its infancy, and now that they're flagging, they're just trying to look for any positive thing that they can take away from anything going on with them. But here's the problem. WWE's numbers have been gradually increasing over the last couple years. Like, they're almost at, they peaked at 2 million viewers on Raw this week. And I think that was it might have been at the top of the second hour of the show for that tornado tag, which was better than it had any right of being. So, so really my big message here is, like, listen, I know it can be kind of fun to, like, dunk on one company or, like, just like, this is funny. They're kind of sucking. Listen, I want everything to work. I honest to God want to see AEW do well. Am I frustrated with, this company, like, taking the smallest victories and like trying to do a victory lap? Yeah, it's a little bit frustrating. It's also frustrating for people on the other side to, like, WWE fans to be like, you suck. Look at our numbers. It's like, guys, this shouldn't be a contest. Like, we should all be coming together as a community and, like, rallying to see good wrestling and see good things. I want to see All In, and I want to see it do well. I really do. But again, a lot of this product has really kind of lost me in the latter stages of 2023 and through most of this year. And you can see the indications that AEW's got some problems. They're going to get a new TV deal. They're not going away. But the question they've got to ask themselves, do you want to be TNA? Because TNA's figured out a niche for themselves, and also they're starting to work with WWE, and it's helped them. But they're not going to be like this drastically, like, viewed show and start trumpeting out numbers and stuff and trying to compete with WWE, because you're never going to beat them. So do you want to be TNA or do you want to be WCW? Because if you go down the second path of WCW, you're going to be dead very soon. Like I said, they're going to get a TV deal, but the fact that it's taken so long is a problem. The fact that Warner Brothers Discovery is kind of reevaluating their financial situation after what happened with the NBA, that's not good. And then again, this product has been ice cold for a large chunk of this year because almost nothing on this show is interesting. And the stuff that's been interesting, it lasts for a little bit, and then and then it turns into just basic, like, simple, like, effect. Like they only do the bare minimum, and they don't go a step further. Like this Britt Baker Mercedes Moné feud was a slam freaking dunk. You have one of the faces of AEW from its infancy, and the first female superstar signed to this company, and like one of the faces and the pillars, whatever you want to call it, going up against one of the most recognizable faces from the outside coming in. And this match the build has felt flat since Forbidden Door. It's really inexcusable, to be honest with you. And almost, some people have mentioned, it almost looks like Britt Baker wants to be out of that company. And that's ironic because the whole reason that Adam Cole's there is because of Britt Baker. And there's some reporting that maybe they're not together anymore. So I don't know where that situation is. But there's been a lot of stuff with the MJF thing, conflicting reports about what's going on there. And then just her whole demeanor, really, since that first promo that she cut, it's just been odd. And I don't know if some of this is like, Mercedes is kind of taking control of the creative, and like some of these promos have just been god awful. I'm glad, like I said, the one positive that I can take away from last night is that the segment did not devolve into something like that, and it was just focusing on the wrestling, and that's what Mercedes does well. Granted, I think having a TBS title match 2 weeks before you're going to defend the title against Britt in a stadium show in what was supposed to be one of your biggest matches is kind of a misfire. I've already made my opinions known about the whole MJF Ospreay thing. It's going to be a fantastic match. The first one was great until the finish, but again, you didn't need to do that on television. They're grasping for straws, and that's the frustrating part. This didn't have to come to this when you were basically just like, throwing haymakers, trying to dunk on people, and act all high and mighty, and be like a Twitter troll like Tony Khan has been, being a Twitter tough guy, and like a lot, and foster this like, tribalistic mindset and fan base. And I'm not saying that this is only exclusive to AEW fans, but the one thing that they've really got to focus on, specifically in the back half of this year, you've got to push some of these people. And I think Ricochet is going to come in, and hopefully they do some more with him. Hopefully, I hope this incline for Will Ospreay happens. I hope Okada does more, because the big selling point for the company this year was, hey, look at the people that we've brought in. Look at the people we've brought in. What the fuck have they done? I've already made Mercedes. She's been okay, but like I said, given where she was, this has been kind of an unmitigated disaster. Okada, he's been entertaining, but that's not the guy you pay $4 million for to, say bitch and just, giggle around like a little schoolgirl. And Will Ospreay, he's been awesome. One of the best wrestlers in the world. But again, you beat him twice in the span of a month. And then now he's on this weird build with MJF and this American championship and this whole dynamic to the thing. I understand that there's some deeper meaning to Will Ospreay doing the same thing in New Japan. But again, should kind of like, not only just book for the sickos, and kind of like, I'm not saying that people are dumb, but you got to act like to some people that they're kind of dumb when watching this, because if you don't do that, you're not going to get any mainstream people to tune into your show, and you're only going to get the people who understand this stuff. Like, I go on social media all the time and I talk about this stuff, and I was like saying, okay, why is this match happening? Why are they announcing this on Twitter? Why are they airing this clip on Twitter? Why aren't they saying this plot point on the show? And people are like, oh, you should know that. You should be paying attention to the other stuff. And I was like, no. Again, you need to act like your audience is kind of a bunch of idiots. And like, market to that. I'm not saying market to that, but like, you've got to like, push to like, tap into that mindset, because that was the whole idea of this company, is you guys were trying to beat WWE in the first place. That hasn't happened. And so like, I think the overriding thing to take this back to where I started, was, to peel this back is like, listen, it's great that you got a stadium show, but act like you're a company and start, like, not try to book and try to actually, put some good content, not just to please yourself, but also to please the bigger audience, because you can keep convincing yourself that you're doing okay. But let's get real. Where this company was 3 or 4 years ago to now, 700,000 isn't good. And, maybe in their dreams they wanted to have a bigger stadium than a baseball stadium, but you know what? I think it's a smart idea to go to global. All right, really quickly here, because I know I kind of rambled on that topic. Because, like I said, AEW really just, you guys are riled up a lot, your fan base, and gives me a lot of engagement, so I appreciate that. So, listen, NXT has been really good lately. So Wes Lee and his heel turn was explained really well. I think we're gonna gear up to he teased potentially having a match with Zach Wentz, who was him and Trey were off television selling the injuries. I think they're supposed to do some stuff in TNA, but TNA's already filmed their content like a month out in advance. But I like the logic behind Wesley's heel turn. I said that before. It's going to be interesting to see how it goes. But Wesley's now in the NXT title picture. It's going to be him, Joe Hendry, and Pete Dunne in a triple threat match next week to determine who faces Ethan Page at No Mercy. It looks a hell of a lot like Joe Hendry is going to be gunning for the NXT title, because I just can't see a scenario where Ethan Page is defending against one of those heels. Wesley just recently turned, and so did Pete Dunne. And Pete Dunne just beat Trick Williams, so I think Trick is going to get involved in some capacity in this match. And then maybe the Rascals. I don't know if you're going to have double interference and do chaos, but I think it's going to be Joe Hendry versus Ethan Page for the NXT title at No Mercy. So that's going to be a big opportunity for TNA. It's going to be a big opportunity for NXT to do stuff. But Joe Hendry's just fucking awesome. I love this guy. So then just sort of looking through the show. So Charlie Dempsey and the new North Quarter Catch crew, minus Tavion Heights, who's been doing some cool stuff in Japan. Charlie Dempsey beats Tony D'Angelo for the Heritage Cup. And Ren Sinclair has added something to this group that it desperately needed. Damon Kemp goes out. You bring in this new vibe. Ren Sinclair has been known for a lot of her work on the independence and on the independent scene as Maddie Rinkowski. So I think it's really cool that they've brought her into this group and this little storyline with the family. And it looks like the family might be teasing some dissension. So, but yeah, that was a little bit of a surprise. Lexis King beats Eddie Thorpe. It was a short match. Lola Vice beats Tatum Paxley. Short match. Obafemi. Let's talk about Obafemi for a second. So, as expected, he faced Otis. They teased this on Raw when he was in the front row. Obafemi, my God, this dude is one of the futures of one of the future pieces to this business. Like, this guy in like 2 years has had a limited amount of matches before he won the title, and now he is bordering on one of the greatest North American Championship runs ever. Because, yeah, Wesley had a lot of runs, but he was an underdog champion. Oba has been dominant, just beating the crap out of people, throwing around people like Wesley like they're a paperclip. He powerbombed Otis, a sit-out variety to win this match. Otis is 350 pounds. Otis is not a small guy, and Obafemi hit the move with ease. He's got this really neat cadence to the way he cuts his promos, where you go ooh, and like the crowd is in NXT is really into it. This guy is freaking phenomenal, and he's going to be in NXT for a while because I don't think there's any need to rush him. Look what happened with Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker could have been on the main roster like a year or two ago. They waited, and they finally brought him up, and look at what's happened. I could see a similar type build for when Obafemi gets to the main roster, because this guy just keeps getting better and better and better. He's a big MFer who just goes out there and frickin' kills people. And it's just like, this guy's got a presence and an aura about him that you just don't see. And he's a natural, and he's a former college athlete. It just leads me to the point of, like, NXT has really figured out how to develop new stars, which was a huge problem. They have brought in college athletes through their NIL program. They've brought in former shot putters and former gymnasts and former bodybuilders who have been able to mold themselves into these big-time stars. And Braun Breaker's a former football player. He's a great example of that. Tiffany Stratton, former gymnast, she's turned into a big-time deal. Carmelo Hayes, who's got some independent experience but was kind of raw as a promo guy, he's turned into a really big deal. So it's like they've really figured out this nice balance of things. And Obafemi is really a prime example of where this company is going. Like I said, phenomenal stuff with him and Otis. Izzy Dame beats Brindley Reese in a singles match later in the show. Izzy Dame, interestingly enough, on the same week that Cora Jade's current boyfriend was a jobber in a match on the show, and her ex-boyfriend Braun Breaker main events the show. Izzy Dame, who is now dating Braun, gets a big singles win. She's been doing okay. Again, the women's division, there's so many talented women. They're green, but they're talented, and like you're getting these, like, I mean, short, but they're getting television time. Shawn Michaels is showing a lot of faith. And then the main event, really the big story on NXT television this week, was Chase U finally, and Ridge Holland, after paying off an enormous storyline with him having this down on his luck thing, trying to find his way. He goes back, he breaks up from the Brawling Brutes, he goes to NXT, he has his whole arc. He joins up with Andre Chase and Chase U. He is the tag team partner of Andre Chase in the match against Axiom and Nathan Frazier, and they win the tag team titles in a phenomenal match. Andre Chase has been great. Him and Duke Hudson had a great match with Axiom and Frazier at the last Premium Live event. But man, like, good for Ridge Holland. Good for Ridge Holland. This guy has taken a ton of shit since breaking Big E's neck, and like it kind of stuck with him through a lot of this. And then they used that in storyline to kind of say, hey, you kind of botch a lot of things, and it kind of set off a chain of events that led him to finding himself in Chase U. And now they're the tag team champions. What happens next out of this? See if it leads to something with Duke Hudson. But man, like I said, NXT's been cooking for a while. And their viewership's kind of got up. They were kind of right around where AEW was. It's going to be interesting to see when they go to the CW in a couple months, and they have those two early arena shows that they do, what the viewership is going to look like with CM Punk on one of them and Randy Orton on one of them the next week. So it'll be interesting to see ticket sales and viewership to see if this becomes more of a regular thing for NXT. So, but yeah, that's really the week in wrestling. We'll have a SmackDown recap. It looks like we're going to get another appearance by our tribal chief, the OTC, the original tribal chief, Roman Reigns, tomorrow night. Yeah, this should be a lot of fun, a big week in wrestling, and I'll talk to you guys real soon. Follow the show at OT Mike Wrestling here on YouTube and on Twitter, and follow me at Off the Mic 28. See you guys soon.